Hello, this is Angelia, and you are listening to or watching the podcast, Why You Do What You Do. The podcast talks about human development and psychology to kind of help you figure out maybe a little bit more about why you do what you do. And last time we were talking about parenting issues, co-regulation, and discipline. And we're going to take up on that again. Middle childhood is the transitional stage of co-regulation, in which parent and child share power. Now, if you're an authoritarian parent and you insist you have all the power, your poor kids are not going to turn out all that great. Sorry. There comes a point in middle childhood where you should start teaching the child how to regulate themselves. They're going to go out in the world someday, and they're going to have to be in charge of themselves, unless you're going to be a hands-on parent even when they're in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, which I've seen people like that, and that's a dang shame. They're going to have to regulate themselves when they become adults. So around middle childhood, you can let them start making choices for themselves. Let them start thinking about their behavior and the way they be, because that's an important milestone in their life is co-regulation. They start regulating their own behavior. Parents oversee, but children exercise moment-to-moment self-regulation, as they should. That's something you need to teach your child, is to think and to be aware of what they're doing and how they're acting. With regard to problems with peers, for example, parents now rely less on direct management or supervision and more on consultation and discussion with their own child. So you can talk about what's the deal, what's the problem, and get some feedback, give some feedback, because, like I say, the child's going to have to regulate themselves at some point, or they never will, and that's probably your fault. Children are more apt to follow their parents' wishes or advice when they recognize that the parents are fair and are concerned about the child's welfare. So the children know what's fair and what's not fair. We had a problem like that in my household because as the oldest child, I could see if something was fair and not fair. There were some unfair things happening in our household. And so I would call them out on that. And then, of course, I would get in trouble and punished for, things that weren't even my fault. But, children notice these things, and then if they see this is how you are, then they're going to trust you less. And if they don't trust you, then they're going to feel like they're the only person they can trust in the world. And then we go down a whole nother little rabbit hole of behaviors. And they need to be know that you're concerned about their welfare. I don't want you to do that because I'm afraid you get hurt, because I told you so. That's not an answer. And they don't respect that. And, they want to know why. And I always tell my children, I don't want you to do that because you could get hurt or whatever. I wanted them to know I was concerned about their welfare. And I had a grandma that was good like that. She would explain the reasons why to you, even if they were a little shocking for a child, but whatever, at least you understood that she was concerned for your welfare. And that means something to the kids. They feel that in their heart. And that they may know better because of experience. And that is something my dad did teach, is that learn from my experience. But there was so much other stuff that, but, let your kids know that you went through similar things and you're concerned about them. And it shouldn't just be, because I said so. Well, who are you? You're just their parent, you had them. They need to know the reasons. There's reasons for laws and rules, and they explain the reasons for rules at school. They explain why there's, laws for this, that, or the other thing. Just explain it to the kid. Don't make it a power struggle, because if it's a power struggle, then you've made a struggle. You're in charge. Be in charge. Doesn't have to be a power struggle. You're in charge. You make the rules. Tell them why if they ask. It's that simple. It also helps if parents try to defer to children's maturing judgment and take strong stands only on important issues, because they're developing their personality. You don't want to stifle their personality. You want them to think for themselves. So you need to teach them that. You can talk through things with them, but ultimately they need to develop their own brain and mature. That's the goal. The way parents and children resolve conflicts may be more important than the specific outcomes, because there should be discussion. There should be cooperation. There should be some agreement there. If the parent is authoritarian, and they are, not even wanting dialogue, then the child just feels like they're being bossed around by a big bully who just happens to be their parent. And they're not really going to respect your wishes because they don't understand why they're your wishes. And some people say they don't need to understand. They do need to understand if you want them to respect your wishes. If family conflict is constructive, it can help children see the need for rules and standards of behavior. And with my kids, that's one thing I do. I put them in the bed, and then I come in there when I was chilled and talk to them and try to figure out what is the deal, why did you do this, and what do we need to do, because this is a problem. We can't have this problem, and what do we need to do to make this not be a problem anymore? What would be easier for you? How would you make this happen? So, there has to be constructive resolution to problems. That's in any relationship, and it's also in relationship with your children. They also learn what kinds of issues are worth arguing about and what strategies can be effective. So they're going to learn sometimes you can argue a little bit and maybe get that extra, cookie. Maybe you can get a little some more for your allowance. You made a mistake, but you think you should get some credit anyway. I mean, you got to teach them, pick your battles. If it's something you think you got wiggle room in, you can do it. But if it's something, is dead dog, that's a rule, no exceptions, then it's not worth arguing over. And they're just going to waste their time and be frustrated. As children become pre-adolescents and their striving for autonomy becomes more insistent, and it will, the quality of family problem solving and negotiation often deteriorates. So, a lot of families, they come together and talk and have problem solving, and you should. And, negotiation. Sometimes you do have to negotiate with kids. And some kids are savvy. They get it, but as your child gets older, starting about preteen, about 5th grade or so, they feel like they're getting to be grown. We know they're not, but they're hitting them double digits. To them, double digits means they're getting to be grown. So, their tolerance for parental interference goes down, and your need for parental interference goes up because they're doing things that you think is risky, and so you feel like you need to step in. So that is when the headbutting starts, around the preteen time, especially for girls, and then maybe not even till the teens for some boys. Boys develop slower than girls. So, no. The shift to co-regulation affects how parents handle discipline, because you should not be disciplining your 5-year-old the same way you discipline your 10-year-old. That's just a fact there. Because they're older and you can take away privileges and things like that. Time out for a 10-year-old, they can just sit in their bed and read a book or whatever, unless you take it away and say you just have to stare at the ceiling. It's just not as effective for someone that age. Parents of school-age children are more likely to use inductive techniques that include reasoning, because you can reason with your kids. They understand more than you think they do. So you can reason with them. Say, hey, I told you not to do this. You did this. And the reason why I didn't want you to do this is because of this. Now this is, happening. So what did we learn? And you don't have to talk down to them. You don't have to be a jerk to them. But you can show them that their consequences have actions, because that's the impact you want to make, is that your actions have consequences. I think I said that backwards a while ago. Just don't have a stroke, I'm telling you. But, everything has a consequence. So that's what you need to teach them, so that as they're getting older, they will weigh that. And sometimes they're not going to care about consequences. They're going to wait and say, yeah, this is more fun. I ain't worried about that for now. That's just part of growing up, being an adolescent. That's just, going to happen. We've all been there. For example, an 8-year-old Jared's father points out how his actions affect others. Hitting Jermaine hurts him and makes him feel bad. In other situations, Jared's parents may appeal to his self-esteem. What happened to that helpful boy who was here yesterday? Or use a sense of humor. If you go on one more day without a bath, we'll know when you're coming without looking. Now, personally, I think this is a bit rude to say to your kid, but, I'm a little more direct. I'm like, dude, you stink. Take a bath. Moral values. A big, strong boy like you shouldn't sit on the train and let an old person have to stand. And of course, nowadays, that's rare that we got young people riding on the train. But, some places like in New York you do. But, if you saw that, you could certainly say, John, give up your seat so that this lady here can sit down. Usually nowadays your neighbors aren't ratting you out. So, or appreciation. Aren't you glad that your father cares enough to remind you to wear boots so that you won't catch a cold? Those are different ways. I personally think that's a bit, ineffective. Above all, Jared's parents let him know he must bear the consequences of his behavior, because that's a lesson in and of itself. No wonder you missed the school bus today. You stayed up too late last night. Now you'll have to walk to school. And of course, if they can, it's not really safe everywhere in certain distance to walk to school, especially, we're talking about an 8-year-old kid here. So no, my 8-year-old child would not be walking to school, and you should not let your 8-year-old child be walking to school either. They ain't big enough yet. Somebody just snatched their little self right off the sidewalk. Today, about 3 out of 4 U.S. mothers of school-age children, and about the same proportion of Canadian women, aged 25 to 34, are in the workforce. Now, in the past, that wasn't how it was, but nowadays, that's how it is. We have to work. The inflation has gone up, the pay has not. So, the day of the one-income household is not realistic for most people anymore. Most people got to have some kind of money coming in. Excuse me. With more than half of all new mothers in the United States going to work within a year after giving birth, which is what I took their first year off. So if you look at my Social Security thing, there's 3 years there. The first year after they were born, I stayed home with them because the parenting classes taught us that they do best if they're at home with a person they love and trust for the first year of their life. Then they're more well-adjusted. So that's what I did. We was a little poor them years, but that's what I did. Many children have never known a time when their mothers were not working for pay. And that's true nowadays. The impact of a mother's work depends on many factors, including the child's age, sex, temperament, and personality, whether the mother works full or part-time. And now see, I chose to work part-time when my kids went to school, for the simple fact that there were some of my children had mental disabilities, and the after school, I wanted to make sure I was going to be there pretty soon, if not already there, because stuff happens, and I didn't want stuff to happen. So, when I was in my disability hearing, that's one thing that, well, I didn't see ours go up. I didn't see, well, when you have mentally disabled children and you're concerned about what's going to happen at home if you're not there because the maturity is not there, and they're watching younger children, of course you're going to make the best decision for your family. Realistically, that's what you're going to do. It can't be all about the money. If you're in a situation like that, my mother did help. She did babysit every now and then, but every day she wasn't there every day after school to make sure things were okay, as the kids were getting older. So I had to make the decisions that was right for my family, whether other people understood that or not. That's their problem, not mine. Mm-hmm. Why she is working, because we needed the money, and how she feels about her work. And there are a lot of people who are stuck in jobs they don't like, and I personally say, if you don't like the job, get out as soon as you can. Find something else that'll pay as much or better, and get out, because your sanity is worth more than any amount of money. So, if people are just pushing you too far, and I'm pretty patient. You can ask anybody who knows me. I am pretty patient. There are people who don't think so, though, that I've worked for in the past. But what they don't see is the lines they're crossing that I didn't say anything about. I'm one of them slow burn people. You can kick me so many times before finally last time I'm like, no more. And then you're like, whoa, what? No, no. You know all that other stuff you did, those other 5,000 things you did before this thing. It's come to this. You don't act surprised. Oh, Lord. Whether she has a supportive or unsupportive mate, and that does make a big difference. Because my husband at the time did not want me to work, because he was a macho guy, and it felt like that was his job to work. It wasn't my job to work, but he wasn't making enough money. And I think he also felt like that was a reflection on him, but it wasn't. It's just the fact that the money was just, we needed more money. We had a house and kids, and we needed more money. So I went back to work, and yes, my work was belittled, and things were said, and that led to some fights. So if you have a supportive mate that's like, yeah, go get it, go do it, girl, that's what I have now. My husband now supports me in whatever I'm going to do. You want to teach people, you do it. You want to write books, you do it. You want to do art, you do it. You want to make jewelry, refurbish furniture, do it. And I'm like, yay, this would have been great if this was the first how this was, but it's a whole nother story. The family's socioeconomic status, and that's, remember, the income level, and the kind of care the child receives before and or after school. Now, when I was in school, in elementary school, in first and second grade, the church next door to the school had a before and after school program, and I used to go to that. And I would, have to walk from the school building to the other building, and there were a lot of kids of different ages who came from different areas. And there was an older girl who was basically either a teenager or almost a teenager, who was going there and knocked me off the swings, put splinters in my legs and everything one day. So it was not well supervised. And I think there was like maybe 2 women or 4 sometimes when one of the people who would cook up there would come down and help out. So it was not well supervised. And there were fighting and things happening. There were, some bad things going on in the bathroom, I know. So, you need to choose your child care carefully. You need to look at the teacher to student ratio, and what the age groups are. Are they in together? Are they separated? Because, again, stuff happens. And it's your job as a parent to make sure it don't. Another factor is whether there are two parents or only one in the household. Because there are two parent households or one parent households. There's three parent households. I knew a girl lived down the way whose mother and father were divorced, but they were still living in the same house. They divided the house in two, and the father was still living in the house. And then she had, a boyfriend outside of that, and, but it was working for them. So more power to them, I guess. Mm. Often a single mother, like Marian Anderson's, must work to stave off economic disaster. And yes, I had to go back to work and work, full days. I ended up moving to a different job because the one took my hours away to like 1 day a week. And it's like, who can afford to work 1 day a week? It's costing me more to maintain my car and put gas in it and get here than you're paying me. So no, that doesn't work. How her working affects her children may hinge on how much time and energy she has left over to spend with them and what sort of role model she provides. And I feel guilty because I felt like there were times where I could have spent more time with them. But I was working on, a business and a charity. And if I was frustrated online and they wanted some attention, I would tell them, go watch a movie, till I get this figured out. And I would, and eventually, come in and everything. But there are times that I feel like I could have probably stopped what I was doing. Now, there were times I couldn't, but, like I was dealing with a client or whatever. But there were times I probably could have, that I was just frustrated because I couldn't figure out what I was trying to figure out online. And, I just was like, hold on a minute, because I like to follow through. I like to get things done. So, we know there's times we could just do more. And, I've told my kids, there's probably times I could have done more, but in the moment I thought that this was what I needed to do. So, if I didn't give you enough attention, I'm sorry about that. Of course, my kids are older now, so they're, there are jokes, but, I love them and they know it. So. The more satisfied a mother is with her employment status, the more effective she is likely to be as a parent. And that just goes to figure. If you're happy, you're going to be happier as a parent. If you're not happy, you're probably not going to be as happy being a parent. So that's at one point when I realized I was bringing some stuff home, I was like, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do this. This is something I, used to get on the X for. I'm not bringing this home to my children. And so I said, nope, I'm not doing this no more. Bye. School-age children of employed mothers tend to live in more structured homes than children of full-time homemakers, with clear-cut rules giving them more household responsibilities. Because mom's home, so she doesn't have to have, all the rules and the chore charts and all that stuff like a working mom does. Because a working mom needs to be more organized when she is there. So the kids with homemaker moms, they get to slack off a little bit. They get to get away with a little bit more because mom's always there. So, that's just things they've learned. They are also encouraged to be more independent because that's something that has to be. I was a latchkey kid, and it was odd because my parent was actually home, but they were sleeping because they worked nights. So I had the key, I came in, and in the beginning I was supposed to go to the bus stop of the younger child and pick them up. But there were several incidents when I was like 8 and 9, standing at the bus stop waiting for the younger kids, to where they said, just come on home, and then let them in. And then I had to fix them a snack, get them a drink, and make sure they were quiet. Because if they woke the parents up, that was on me, because I was the oldest. I should have known better, and it was my job to keep them quiet. So you can imagine that came out a lot of not great things, and there was not a super relationship between me and my siblings, because it was my job to make sure they stayed quiet so my parents could be sleeping upstairs. And of course, they're going to try to get away with stuff. They're little kids. So there was, some bad relationship dynamics between me and them. There probably still is, but, And they have more egalitarian attitudes about gender roles. So, if mom's working all the time, then she's just like dad. So, it doesn't have to be dad's out working, mom's in the home. They understand you got to do what you got to do, Both boys and girls in low-income families seem to benefit academically from the more favorable environment a working mother's income can provide. So, no offense, if you've chosen to be a homemaker, that's fine. But the structure and the more income coming in help children more than mom being there all the time. So, if you did it and that's why you thought you were doing it, you made your decision. It was not a wrong decision, but the studies show that, children learn that they need to work hard for what they want. In middle-class families, however, sons of working mothers tend to do less well in school than sons of homemakers, whereas daughters usually do as well or better when mothers work. So our boys, unfortunately, can get babied, and they feel more happy and well-adjusted. One of my grandmothers used to say, men never grow up, they just become bigger boys. I don't have that quite a sexist attitude, but, boys have a bigger problem adjusting, to that. And we're not going to get into, edible things, but they like for mom to be around. Whereas girls are like, hey, mom's doing this, I can do this, These gender differences in middle-class families may have to do with boys' greater need for supervision and guidance. Because as the saying goes, boys will be boys, but no, they don't have to be. Boys mature slower than girls do, and they have 3 times less connections in the corpus callosum, the center of the brain. So their brain doesn't talk to itself, logical and emotional at the same time like women's do. They have to shift gears. So yes, boys are a little slower on the uptake than girls are. So the boys do need more supervision and guidance than the girls do. Some children of employed mothers are supervised after school by their fathers, grandparents, or other relatives, or babysitters. And we had some babysitters for the evening when the parents would go to work. And that worked out good in some cases not so much, but, it is important that you have someone that you trust to watch your child, because that's your child. That is your most precious thing ever in the world. It's not your possession. You don't own it. So, don't cop that attitude about it. But that is the most precious thing God has ever gifted you in the world, is a little person from you that's part you and part your mate, to raise and bring them into this world as a decent person, a good, intelligent, loving, decent person like God would have them to be. That's the biggest job you got. And it's a blessing. Some go to structured programs, either at school or in childcare settings. Like good childcare for preschoolers, good after-school programs have relatively low enrollment, low child staff ratios, and well-educated staff. Like I said, one of them that I stayed at, not so much. But those are the things you should be looking for in childcare. Children, especially boys, in organized after-school programs marked by flexible programming and a positive emotional climate, tended to adjust better in first grade. So, the boys needed a little more to adjust to school. And that's where I'm going to leave you today. Hopefully that helped you figure out maybe a little bit more about why you do what you do. Until next time.